The NBA world as we know it ceased to exist on February 1st, 2025. Luka Doncic got traded in what was easily the most shocking trade of all time. Only 12 times in NBA history has a player been traded coming off a first-team All-NBA selection, and it's happened just 4 times since 1980. In the aftermath of the craziest trade deadline in NBA history, where a record 63 players changed teams, including 8 All-Stars, we decided to compile a list of the top 10 most shocking trades in NBA history, starting with the one that happened on February 1st, 2008.
When Mitch Kupchak came to you and said, "I can get you Pau Gasol for Kwame Brown," what did you say back?
No, you can't. But
Exactly 17 years before the shocking Luka trade, the Lakers added another European superstar. And just like with Luka, it was completely out of the blue.
It was a big surprise that this happened. You know, it's definitely huge.
I remember there was something written or a rumor that Pau Gasol might be available, but it wasn't the mainstream, said Mitch Kupchak, then the Lakers general manager. And just like with Doncic, the Lakers moved silently. And when the trade for Gasol was confirmed, it sent shockwaves throughout the NBA. Not only was the trade unexpected because nobody knew that the Grizzlies wanted to part with the best player in franchise history, but also because the package Memphis got in return was laughable.
Kwame Brown is gone. The City of Angels, Hollywood just should be celebrated. This man was a bona fide scrub.
Apart from 2 first-round picks, the Grizzlies got Kwame Brown, one of the biggest busts in NBA history. A rookie, Javaris Crittenden, who had played a total of 171 minutes of NBA basketball up to that point, the rights to Pau's younger brother Marc Gasol, who had never even played in the NBA, and Aaron McKie, who was retired. Aaron McKie was on our team the previous year, but now he was coaching as an assistant coach in Philadelphia, and we called him up and said, "Listen, how would you like to make another $1 million?" The trade was considered the biggest robbery in modern NBA history.
No disrespect whatsoever, but I'm sorry to tell everybody the truth. He has no game whatsoever, plays no defense, doesn't have the heart, the passion, or anything that comes with it. And you're asking me whether they gave up too much? Please, the Los Angeles Lakers knew exactly what they were doing. They should be celebrating right now, and Kobe Bryant should not be saying a word.
And the rest of the league was appalled. The Spurs coach, Greg Popovich, was so disgusted that he wanted the NBA to change trade rules. What they did in Memphis was beyond comprehension. There should be a trade committee that can scratch all trades that make no sense. I just wish I had been on a trade committee that oversees NBA trades. I'd like to elect myself to that committee. I would have voted no to the LA trade. Gasol instantly improved the Lakers, who finished the season on a 22-5 run, made 3 straight NBA Finals, won 2 NBA Finals, and Pau even had his jersey retired. In retrospect, the trade worked for both teams, since Marc Gasol became a cornerstone of the Grizzlies franchise, being arguably the best player in their history. Another similarly baffling trade for a star power forward dates back to 1995. When Dennis Rodman joined the Chicago Bulls. This deal was strange not only because the return for Rodman was minuscule, but also because some of the Bulls players hated Rodman's guts, especially Scottie Pippen.
A beautiful backfoot pass from Pippen, and he is walloped, and that will be a flagrant foul.
Rodman joined the Spurs in 1993, and during his 2 seasons in San Antonio, his production was as good as ever. The Worm was playing all NBA defense and led the team in rebounds with 17 boards per game. But to say that there were some issues would be an understatement. Rodman started dating Madonna, which brought a lot of non-basketball related attention. He also began dyeing his hair virtually for every game. He was perpetually late for meetings, could often be seen drinking and partying, and was an overall nuisance on every level. During the 1994 season, Dennis was fined a total of $32,500 on 4 separate occasions and was suspended for 3 games.
The NBA has suspended Dennis Rodman for tomorrow night's San Antonio-Utah game and fined him $10,000.
He clashed with coaches, teammates, and even opponents, including the headbutting of Bulls' Stacey King. And it only got worse from there. In his first preseason game of the 95 season, Rodman got ejected and spiced it up by throwing a bag of ice at Spurs coach Bob Hill. He then missed time due to a separated shoulder from a motorcycle accident and was again suspended on multiple occasions. But things really heated up in the 95 playoffs. In the middle of Game 3 of San Antonio's second-round series against the Lakers, Rodman took off his shoes and sat down by the training table. He didn't join team huddles, instead choosing to simply watch the game. Hill did not put him back on the floor in Game 3, and then Spurs general manager Greg Popovich suspended him for Game 4. And even though the Spurs won the series and Rodman averaged 15 rebounds in the conference finals, it was clear his days in San Antonio were numbered. In fact, his NBA career might have been over because nobody wanted anything to do with him, except for the Chicago Bulls. Bulls general manager Jerry Krause knew that the team desperately needed rebounding and defensive presence, as that was the main reason they lost to Shaq's Magic in the '95 playoffs. He also knew that if anybody could handle Rodman's wild character, it was the Zen master, Phil Jackson, and the best player on the planet, Michael Jordan. But Scottie Pippen was absolutely against the addition of Rodman, mainly because of all the dirty fouls while Rodman was a member of the Bad Boy Pistons. So, Phil Jackson made Dennis apologize to Scottie in order to sign with the team. Desperately needing money and wanting to team up with MJ, Rodman accepted, and on October 3, 1995, Rodman was traded to Chicago for Will Perdue, a backup center who averaged 4 points per game. That's it. There were no other players involved in the trade. No draft picks, no cash compensation, which is borderline crazy considering that Rodman was an All-NBA player in 1995. But because Rodman was also borderline crazy, the deal was made, and the rest was history. Rodman led the NBA in rebounding the next 3 seasons and helped the Bulls win 3 championships, playing a huge role for one of the most legendary teams of all time. But even though Gasol and Rodman's trades were perplexing for the lack of return value, how about 2 all-star point guards traded for each other in the middle of their primes? This happened in 2001, when the Phoenix Suns traded Jason Kidd for Stephon Marbury, in a deal that stunned the rest of the NBA. Kidd was coming off arguably the best season of his career, averaging 16.9 points, a league-leading 9.8 assists, and 2.2 steals. Jason made the All-NBA First Team in 2001, as well as First Team All-Defense. So, why did the Suns decide to trade a guy like that? Well, partly because Kidd was arrested during the 2001 season because of a domestic violence case, and partly because they felt that Marbury was a better player. Steph was 23 years old, 4 years younger than Kidd. He was a superior scorer, averaging 23.9 points per game along with 7.6 assists. In 2000, Marbury made 3rd All-NBA team, and in 2001, he was an All-Star, and the Suns believed his production was only going to increase. And they were wrong. Even though Marbury averaged 21 points and 8 assists during his Phoenix tenure, with 1 more All-Star appearance, he was nowhere near Kidd's level of defense and leadership, demonstrated by 0 series wins in the playoffs. On the other hand, Kidd led the Nets to 2 consecutive NBA Finals, and despite not winning a title, the Nets were the clear winners of this shocking trade. A very similar story unfolded in the 2013-2014 season, where one team completely robbed the other out of all of their draft capital, in exchange for superstars way past their prime. Of course, we're talking about the infamous Nets Celtics trade that sent Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Jason Terry to Brooklyn in exchange for 5 players, 3 first-round picks, and 1 pick swap.
The Nets made a bold step in their pursuit of a championship, sending a host of assets to Boston for a package that centered on Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett.
At the time of the trade, Pierce, KG, and Terry had a combined age of 105. And after the initial shock that the Celtics traded Pierce, who was believed to end his career in Boston, everybody had to congratulate the Celtics GM, Danny Ainge. All Brooklyn managed to do was win a first-round series in the 2014 playoffs, after which they suffered a quick loss to LeBron and the Heat. Pierce then left in free agency. KG followed soon after.
Pierce departed this past summer, and in the wake of yesterday's trading deadline, Garnett is no longer a Net either.
And the Nets were stuck between a rock and a hard place, at the bottom of the standings with all their draft picks in Boston. As a result of this trade, the Celtics were able to rebuild into a championship contender in record time, largely because of the Nets picks that turned into Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And speaking of the Celtics, let's talk about the biggest victim of their early championship success, Wilt Chamberlain, who had not 1, but 2 shocking trades during the era where superstars almost never got traded. The first time it happened was in 1965, when Wilt was averaging an unreal 39 points and 23 rebounds per game, playing in his 6th season with the Warriors. Just 2 years after the Warriors relocated from Philadelphia to San Francisco, they got into financial trouble, and Wilt was the main reason why. His salary outweighed the profits the franchise made from selling tickets, and after the Warriors started the season with a disastrous 11-33 record, their only option was to sell their best player. In a move that nobody in the world expected, Chamberlain got traded to Philadelphia, who now had a new franchise called the 76ers.
So are you happy or sad about it?
Mixed emotions. Actually, I'll be like Tony Bennett leaving my heart here in San Francisco because I fell in love with the city.
In return, the Warriors received a much-needed $150,000, along with Paul Newman, Connie Dierking, and Lee Schaefer. With the 76ers, Wilt Chamberlain was happy for about 3 years. After finally winning the NBA championship in 1967, the Sixers had a disappointing title defense in 1968, with Wilt once again losing Game 7 to his arch-nemesis Bill Russell. And what happened next was unprecedented. Wilt Chamberlain, the player, acted like an agent and general manager all in one, deciding to trade himself to his destination of choice. Since there was no free agency back then, and players couldn't decide their own future, it was impossible for players to move teams on their own accord. Well, unless your name was Wilt Chamberlain, who had more leverage than any other athlete in the world. Wilt threatened the Sixers that he would either retire or join the ABA if they didn't let him go. Once that bridge was crossed and the Sixers caved in, Wilt could choose where he wanted to go. LeBron is often called Le GM, but the true pioneer of player empowerment was Wilt, who in 1968 orchestrated his own trade to the Lakers for a measly return of Darrell Imhoff, Archie Clark, and Jerry Chambers. Wilt's move to Los Angeles marked the first time in NBA history that a reigning NBA MVP got traded the following season. But 7 years after that, another legendary center followed suit. In 1975, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar grew tired of Milwaukee, and in search of greener pastures, he gave the Bucks an ultimatum to trade him either to the Knicks or the Lakers. And just like his mentor, Wilt, Kareem's wish was granted, and the Lakers were the highest bidder, further establishing their reputation as the mecca for superstars. And 21 years after Kareem's relocation to LA, it happened again. In 1996, the best center in the NBA became a Laker. After they lowballed him on a contract extension, Shaquille O'Neal shunned the Orlando Magic and joined the Lakers as a free agent for a then-record contract of $120 million.
Jerry West made me the best deal, made me the best offer, and I took it.
Together with Kobe Bryant, O'Neal led the Lakers to 3 consecutive NBA titles. But after the disappointing loss to the Pistons in the 2004 NBA Finals, the infamous beef between Shaq and Kobe had finally reached its boiling point. "I ain't playing with that ever again," Kobe said after the finals loss, and he meant it.
We were looking for homes. Right. We were actually looking for homes in Chicago, researching schools, places to live.
So that was true, you were going to go to the Bulls?
Yeah.
But then, out of the blue, a shocking trade alert stunned Bryant and the rest of the NBA world. Shaq got traded to Miami in exchange for Lamar Odom, Caron Butler, Brian Grant, and a future first-round pick. And just like Kobe, who didn't want to be known as the Robin to Shaq's Batman, one other All-Star guard shared very similar feelings. After 3 consecutive trips to the NBA Finals and just 1 NBA championship, Kyrie Irving decided he no longer wanted to play with LeBron James. Though their relationship wasn't nearly as rocky as Shaq's and Kobe's, Irving wanted his own thing and wanted to be the alpha dog on his own team. So, in the summer of 2017, Kyrie requested a trade.
If you're Kyrie Irving, you may want to be out from under LeBron's shadow, but it's more important to get your shine on the biggest stage under the brightest lights.
And very quickly after, before the dust of his trade request even settled, he was gone. Irving was traded to Boston for another All-Star point guard, Isaiah Thomas, along with Jay Crowder and Ante Zizic. And like many times before, the Celtics GM Danny Ainge outsmarted another team. Thomas was injured and was a shadow of his former self, and the Cavs ended up getting 20 cents on the dollar. In the following years, Irving had a fallout with Boston, so this trade didn't work for anybody.
What are your thoughts on Kyrie Irving?
He sucks.
He sucks.
But at the time of the deal, it seemed like the steal of the century and was surely the biggest talk of the 2017 NBA offseason. Now, this next trade is one of the worst financial decisions of this century and one that destroyed a dynasty. Just 4 days before the start of the 2012-2013 regular season, everything seemed fine and dandy in Oklahoma City. Despite the loss in the 2012 NBA Finals, they had plenty of reason to be happy because they had the best young core in the NBA. Or at least so they thought. One extremely unexpected Woj bomb later, their future dynasty was destroyed as James Harden got traded to the Houston Rockets. Harden still had 1 year left on his rookie deal, and the Thunder had offered him a $55 million extension, which was about $4.5 million shy of the maximum $60 million contract that the Beard wanted.
They didn't want to give Harden the max. Their position was everyone who's re-signed here has sacrificed a little something, even Durant, even Russell Westbrook, so they were looking for Harden to be willing to take a little less than the max.
Not willing to deal with an unhappy player and to stay below the luxury tax, the Thunder felt that their hands were tied, and they decided to make Harden available for a trade. As soon as the Rockets heard that, they jumped at the opportunity, getting Harden for a discount, as OKC got Jeremy Lamb, Kevin Martin, and 2 first-round draft picks in return for one of the best scorers in NBA history. This deal caught everyone off guard.
Thunder General Manager Sam Presti, one of the best in the biz. His decisions rarely questioned by Thunder fans, but this one has been and no doubt will continue to be.
Especially because Harden was still under contract, and the Thunder could have just stayed pat and done nothing. But they completely botched it over $4 million, which marked the beginning of the end of KD and Westbrook's era in OKC. However, 7 years after that Harden trade, Russ was still in Oklahoma City, and instead of Durant as his counterpart, there was Paul George. Even though they got beat in the first round of the playoffs 2 years in a row,
Lillard, long-range three,
the relationship between Russ and PG seemed great. They were both in their prime, and that's why nobody could have predicted what happened next. The biggest domino in the 2019 free agency, the fun guy Kawhi Leonard held nearly all of the NBA's free agents as proverbial hostages. Free agency started on June 30th. But 7 days later, Kawhi still hadn't made a decision, weighing the options to stay in Toronto or move to California to one of the LA teams. Because of his reluctance, free agency halted, as many teams hoped to land the biggest fish, or move accordingly once that fish was caught. And then it happened. On July 6th, one of the most shocking and completely unexpected scenarios unraveled. Kawhi had made his decision, choosing to sign with the LA Clippers.
What did the Clippers do so right that convinced Kawhi Leonard to sign with them?
Not only did the Clippers sign Leonard, but they also got Paul George, as Kawhi wanted to link up with another superstar. What made this deal so extravagant is that nobody expected George to even be available, much less that he'd come in a package deal with Kawhi, and that of all possible destinations, they'd signed for the Clippers, who have always been in the Lakers' shadow and had never attracted free agents of such magnitude. Furthermore, this deal was so special because of the haul that OKC received for George.
4 first-round picks, 4 unprotected future first-round picks, a protected future first-round pick, 2 pick swaps, and outstanding rookie point guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari.
Marking the biggest collection of draft picks ever sent for a single player. And compared to this enormous harvest of draft picks, what happened on February 1st, 2025 seems almost comical. When Shams Charania broke the news that Luka Doncic had been traded, we all thought his phone had been stolen, or that he was pulling some sort of sick joke.
This deal materialized in the shadows. This came out of nowhere. This is maybe the most stunning trade, definitely that I've been a part of.
The ability to lock down a player in his mid-20s who's one of the greatest players in the league on a 5-year extension is the dream for franchises. And the Mavericks looked at that and said, you know what? We don't think he's worth $350 million. We can't stomach even giving it to him. So that's one unbelievable situation with a 25-year-old guy who's been a 5-time first-team All-NBA player. I just want to point something out. Steph Curry hasn't made first-team All-NBA 5 times.
A player who had made 5 All-NBA teams in his first 6 seasons, who had just led the NBA in scoring and led the Mavericks to the finals, got traded? Luka is only 25. He was supposed to be a Maverick for life and to get a statue next to Dirk Nowitzki. And they traded him for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and just 1 first-round pick? Is this the same NBA where Rudy Gobert got traded for 5 players and 5 first-round picks? And Mikal Bridges yielded 5 firsts and a pick swap? The Mavs general manager, Nico Harrison, clearly didn't think so. Because, Luka doesn't have a six-pack. A player of his magnitude, age, and accomplishments should have yielded 10 first-round picks, if that's even possible. And all they got was 1. With all due respect to Anthony Davis, who's an all-NBA player, and Max Christie, who's got plenty of potential on a team-friendly contract, the Mavericks dropped the ball, and they dropped it hard.
Oh, no. Uh-oh. Oh, I don't feel good about that. Nope.
Luka Doncic is a generational talent, and players like him don't grow on trees. To trade a guy like that is borderline insanity. And because it was done without a trade request, in complete silence, without anyone knowing, not even the agents or the players themselves, makes it easily the most shocking trade in NBA history, and one that will be talked about for decades. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, we have another one for you right here.